This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Hey everyone, it is me. We are here. Joseph is here too. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, what's up?
Boom, boom, boom. We're recording.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey everyone. Hey everyone.
Hey, everyone.
I am recording this on the computer now.
Hey everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey everyone.
Boom. All right. It says it's recording. Boom, 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 boom.
I am apparently recording.
The entire bottle of control. They're all exactly the same.
Crypto art, and then what it really is an NFT.
Wow. Eddie wants to slap the bag.
So this is the next best thing.
DeFi is going to be a bubble.
It's provably scarce. With Mad Dog.
Crypto, gold, and silver.
Transparent substance.
Take my money, start a war with it.
Without further ado.
Cheers to you, brother.
Get shit done.
Because the system has to collapse before that.
Cheers, I feel much better now.
Cheers.
Wow, that was heavy.
Boom. Welcome to Blockchain and Booze number 145. This is going to be a fun one. Happy New Year's, everyone. Cheers.
Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's. Oh, don't tell anyone. I'm just drinking.
That is if you follow the Gregorian calendar and not a block record and to time how many cycles of blocks you've been under.
I thought you were going to go.
I've left that.
I thought you were going to start, getting into, weird religious things of the calendar and things like that because of the holidays recently. But then going in the blocks.
I'm not the demonic lord of Python strength.
Well, it's that's a whole new religious argument of time is a construct and why do we celebrate at certain points in time and things like that. That's kind of fun.
But tonight we're not talking about time as a construct. We're talking about places and moving money internationally.
Ooh. Yes, we are. Brian keeping me on point. I like it. But before we begin. If you are watching on the Lunar Crush live stream, if you listened on Blockchain Radio, if you're watching live though, go to blockchainbooze.io. It'll redirect you to the DGH event site. You can hang out with the community there. I see Adele is back there. Marina was in there early, and we hang out there. And after we're done, you can turn on your camera there and hang out with the community. I know both Kevin and Brian are regulars hanging out back there. And sometimes we go late. Sometimes I sneak off to have dinner with the fam. Sometimes I come back and everyone's still online. It's fun. So join us. It's a great place to meet new friends, hang out with community members, and ask questions of people who are in it alongside you. I'm excited to have Kevin and Brian on. I kind of wanted to set the year up and do like a topic that was really not out there for us, but out there in that, like, I was thinking to set the topic originally to just be like freedom, right? Like borderless open freedom. And we can touch on that stuff, but I was pinging Brian and DMing with him, and he was I think it's long overdue that he comes on and tells us about his product that he has for international payments. I thought it'd be great if Kevin came on, because Kevin, you have a lot of experience in the space in general, but also you do stable tech and stable coins as well as anyone.
USD Tez.
What was that?
USD Tez. USD
Tez is the earliest stable coin on Tezos, right?
Yep. First stable coin. I think TZBTC beat us by like a month. So first USD stablecoin, it's reserve backed, and it's Tezos exclusive. So if you like the aspects of Tezos that have no asset splits, then only logical to look at one that's only on Tezos. So that's USD Tez, audited every month, DGH backed.
That's right. And yes, full disclosure. Brian, well, you know what? I think, Brian, you haven't joined us on here officially as a guest. I think you've been in the kind of community roundup. So why don't we start with you? Just give everyone who doesn't yet know you your background. I met Brian, I think definitely through the Bitcoin meetups up north in Northern California that you do, the Sacramento one, probably through our longtime OG member. My brain is breaking right now.
David Rankin.
Come on, first start to the year.
Rankin. I wanted to call him Dr. Enkin, and my brain couldn't come up with David.
Also goes
I
by
don't know
Dr.
why
Enkin.
I couldn't get David, but David, as everyone knows, is the oldest OG blockchain booze member in terms of logging in minutes, because he was doing the after parties early on. And it looks like James is James Gibson in the chat. He's in Vegas for CES, which is pretty neat. I remember when that was called Comdex because I'm old. But Brian, give us your background. Tell us what your company does, and let's jump in.
Yeah. So my name is Brian, and I'm up here in Sacramento area. I run the Sacramento Bitcoin and cryptocurrency meetup with David Rankin. And essentially what we do is international payments, specifically to Northern Africa. And we help people in Northern Africa get access to American credit cards. And we are currently moving $250,000 from Northern Africa, from United States to Northern Africa for families that do remittance, or somebody having a business there, or et cetera, et cetera. So we're up and running, and we're moving large amounts of money and making small amounts of money. Let's put it that way.
That's very cool. And the general idea is that, if I understood correctly from when we hung and talked about it, is that it's hard for folks in North Africa to have sort of modern credit cards and like the regular payment rails that we're all used to.
100%. And so there's a lot of people out there that say like, oh, what's the point of cryptocurrency? Can't banks and credit cards do all that sort of stuff? And to those people, I say two things. Number one, you live in the United States, and 95% of the world does not. Okay, that's number one. And number two, if you don't think if the banks and credit cards do everything that you need, you probably live a boring financial life. Right? Now, I'm not saying you don't have a fun social life, or you don't have fun dinner parties, or you don't like have a cool sex dungeon or anything. But I am saying if you don't need crypto, you have a boring financial life because you're not pushing the limits. And in a lot of countries, we complain about the financial system in America, but in other countries, it's way, way worse. And Alon, we could get deep down into that question, deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And the deeper you go down, the more ugliness you see, and the more corruption you see, and the more problems you see. And essentially, people in third world developing countries, they would love to have just basic things that in America we take for granted.
Well, it reminds me of, the Bitcoin discussion many, many, many years ago, right? So I've told some of you guys in the past, I think that when I was in the crowdfunding world and wanting to test crypto for micropayments, when I first heard about it and stuff, we built a little mining rig in our office and kind of like explored crypto in 2013. It lasted, like a month, and the electricity bill story and all that stuff. That was fine. That was an experiment. And we're like, it's not ready for mainstream. And for years afterwards, I would talk about Bitcoin, hear about Bitcoin, and say, man, we already have digital money, or at least it feels that way for us in America. Bitcoin is world changing for those other countries, when bombs are being dropped on Iran and people are scared and they want to hold their own money, or maybe their bank account is being frozen because your wife happened to take off her hijab or when she went to protest, right? Like whatever. There's reasons globally, wars, dictators, problems that make Bitcoin life-changing for people, right? And in my mind, Bitcoin was that. And then in 2015, I'm talking about Bitcoin at a big 805 startups event locally. And I talk about how Bitcoin is for freedom. I still never once bought Bitcoin for myself at any of those times because I didn't think of it as an investment. I thought about it as freedom. And I didn't really need that freedom yet in my mind. And then later I realized, oh man, if I would have, oh man, if I would have, oh man, if I would have, and then I did. But it's just this interesting, to think about it that way. We take so much of this for granted, even when we're complaining all the time. But before we jump in, Kevin, introduce yourself more than just jumping in. We should.
No. Isn't that the best way though? All right. Well, my name is Kevin Marabi. I started a company called Stable Tech, which is actually a consortium of multiple firms in the Tezos ecosystem. And what we focused on is building Tezos DeFi layer 1 and now layer 2 primitive tools, instruments, platforms. So that started with USD Tez in mid 2020, and that was the first USD stablecoin on Tezos because that was the first thing we needed to get DeFi going. But there were no exchanges yet. So it took us several months for even an exchange to appear. We made the first cross-chain bridge between Ethereum and Tezos. That is the first P2P decentralized bridge where you can swap assets from one chain to another. And just recently, we launched the first lending system on Tezos, lending as akin to Compound or Aave, these pool-based lending systems, which is now under audit review. So very excited for that to finish because once we do that, we can, oh no.
We were talking backstage before everyone came on.
I was just about to have a perfect dismount as well, from what I was saying.
We can still hear you.
We'll get back into it. But it was really funny because Brian and I were going back and forth about the light behind Brian. I was like, when the sun goes down, you're going to be in the dark. And now he's in the dark. And I was looking at myself going, man, I should maybe get my setup locked in because I'm a little blurry right now and whatever. And then Kevin came on just crisp and clear, looking good. And we were, it was really funny. And then Kevin disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're under audit review right now.
Yes. So security audit review, and after audit remediation, when all that's said and done, then we'll have finally a lending system and a system of free credit on Tezos. So which is great. Things like Compound and Aave are wonderful because and just how they're transforming lending and how that's going. If you have collateral, you can take out a loan. If you don't, you can't. So unlike our traditional financial ecosystem, which overprivileges people who really shouldn't qualify and underprivileges those who definitely do based on the prejudices and whatnots of what we need social reform for, lending in a decentralized manner, just like DeFi overall, is helping to get us to a better state. So pursuing that and the things that we can build on top of all those things, as well as the new launch of the next version of TezX, which will be we're going to announce pretty soon, but it'll start with liquidity baking, which is a thing on Tezos, Sirius, and then moving into liquidity source aggregation, kind of like Curve, a little different. And then the relaunch of Stable Tez portal, which will be a lot more accessible and geographically accessible, starting in the US. So that's something we've worked on for a very long time. So we're really excited to get it out there so that everyone can access USD Tez. Yeah.
Nice. And, give the kind of DeFi ecosystem on Tezos is still kind of
Brian looks concerned.
What was that?
Brian looks concerned right now. Is it something I said?
It was
okay.
I'm just looking at it as there's a lot of, because we work in the developing world in Northern Africa, and everything Kevin said was super good and super awesome and super high tech. But a lot of folks in the developing world literally only use cash. And so it's like Kevin is doing awesome stuff that's like level 18, and like there are a lot of folks in the developing world that are like level 1, and they just have cash and
I think
a phone, basically.
I think that the idea though is folks like you will give more people more access. Folks, especially I know in the Tezos community, there's Ijara and Nelly and that whole crew. Remember, we did. I think we didn't do it as a blockchain and booze. We did it as a random live stream on my Twitter that one time.
I think you did.
Because the time zones for Africa didn't work out well for us. But there's a very growing community of Tezos wallets and crypto wallets in general in Africa.
Yeah,
that
Francophone
I think
Africa in particular. Western Africa and North Africa.
And I think these are puzzle pieces, right? Because you need some basic stuff like to live, like what Brian's talking about. And then beyond then living is the part where you unlock the financial freedom and mobility and everything else, right? That DeFi can give everyone access to. If it's still a luxury because you still have to eat before you can play in DeFi. But
I foresee like everyone being able to specialize in their own areas and do a better job delivering to their clients. So like for us, I imagine a lot of front end wallets and just different platforms that are used that are focused on how do we deliver a frictionless user experience and just become obsessed with perfecting the user funnel, which is a full-time competency in itself. And it's not easy and it's tricky and it changes over time, particularly now as we're going from tens of thousands of users in crypto, maybe hundreds of thousands if you're generous, to we wanting to get to millions and tens of millions and all that. Then there's that, what they would plug into. So would they be the ones to necessarily make their own contracts for lending, for exchange? Maybe, but that's a whole other can of worms there, and more competency, a different kind of competency to perfect. So as we are, I feel like there's the producer level, just like with any kind of industry. Like I just think of actual farming, where it's like, they're producing the raw materials, and then there's the refining process, and then they make stuff, and then they do a good job, and then packaging, delivery, whatever. However, like I understand the American farmer, come on. But then somehow it gets to the retail storefronts, and then you get your corn that you can start munching on. But yeah, it's not going to be necessarily the same person. Sometimes but now, there are people who go to it completely for the front end, and they're willing to put up with it. The little farmer's market kind of mentality, which isn't going to give you the glitz and glamour and the service as a polished store, but that's not why you're there. And maybe you find some charm in that too, or advantage. And I think there are definitely a lot of people who are like, ooh, this experience is so frictionful. Oh, this is a terrible user experience. I guess I'm the only one willing to use it. That's my advantage. I got to get their coin before they become user friendly. It's sort of like a perverse attraction to things that they otherwise really shouldn't relate to. But that's what we saw. To an extreme, we saw that in the early point of crypto summer with like mid summer of 2020 with how yield farming just went kind of like crazy, to the effect of like, okay, no security audit, huh? All right, I see what you're saying. It's like, use at your own risk, consider your money gone. Gotcha. All right.
Well,
okay.
it's
and they would put hundreds of millions of dollars into it.
I think you're looking at it through the lens of maybe somebody building in the space or being way overly practical in like the most
Definitely
impractical, crazy degen behavior, right? People didn't go, ooh, no security audit. Am I reading between the lines? Like what? I think they literally were just like, Brian just earned $1 million yam, and if I do the same thing, I'm gonna do it too. If Brian's doing it, I'll do it. And Kevin goes, hey, Alon and Brian are doing it, I want free yam, and then all of a sudden we're all freaking farming yams, and we're all rich until we're not. and then we do it all over again, like we didn't learn from our mistakes. Because
yam was the prime example, wasn't it?
It was one of the first ridiculous ones, remember? And then that's how you think about it. The Yam thing happened, and then we had Jordan Lyall on here who did meme coin. And if you remember, that was part of what inspired it. He's like, pick your fruit or vegetable. He created a thing called the degenerator. And it wasn't, he didn't actually create it. It was a mock-up of a pretend product he was pretending he was launching. And it looked like pick your vegetable or fruit, pick your yield generating contract, pick your pick your that, click go. And then there was a tweet that went wild and everyone made fun of it. And then somebody made the actual meme coin with the pineapple because of it.
But I mean, it's so much more digestible that way when you put it in terms of like toys, I guess. Yeah, which a lot of them kind of were.
Well, okay. So there's all kind of fun stuff like that, but like when it comes to people actually, normal people that aren't crypto weirdos like us that are wanting to move their money, what I'm a big fan of, and Alon, I'd like to know kind of your point of view from this when it comes to investment. I'm a big fan of mullet finance, which is centralized in the front and then decentralized in the back, right? You got the party in the back, which is all the cool decentralized stuff that, Kevin
I would just like to wait before we move on. I'd just like to throw out a reference to a punk song because that's very important to me. It's because we are all a bunch of apes in this space. We're rebranding it from mullet finance to ape drape finance, which if everyone now really quickly goes to YouTube and searches for ape drape, you will find a song by the Vandals that goes, "I've got an ape drape, yes I do," and it's a song about mullets. So there we go. And of course, Punk Ape Strong would definitely be a fan of ape drape finance. So I think we got to work on that together, guys. But yeah, I think you're right. So Kevin is building the rails for this decentralized finance world, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on. I know you're building sort of the front end interface, dealing directly with the customers, and I thought that would be important because I think the decentralized nature of the back end is what makes it free, right? I had a call. I wish they could be on right now, but it's 5 a.m. for them. I'll make them wake up early at 5 a.m. with Return this morning. And Return is trying to do something similar, a front end compliant interface, but the back end is all in decentralized products where there's proof of reserves, proof of everything, so that there is no exposure to a single person's bad management of the treasury, right? And that's, I think really, really important to kind of separate those two things and do it right. Kevin is a big, as far as I understand, you're super into making sure, one-to-one, right? Like there isn't equity in a startup pretending to be what's backing your token, right?
Yeah, there's no, it's not like leverage collateral, which would effectively make that stablecoin just a form of a debt. Not that I'm being dismissive of it. I think it's a very important part of the DeFi economy, and it helps. It's a great synergy between them and lending systems and liquidity exchanges and all of that. But in terms of like just a prime example, if you go and look at the largest pools, liquidity pools out there, you'll find mostly stable coins paired with stable coins, but also you'll find that those algo coins like DAI or Frax on Ethereum, like their largest pool is not actually their pool with ETH, it's their pool with USDC or their pool with USDT.
Yeah.
And that has to be larger in order to shape out market confidence. And like, okay, if I wanted to, I could go to a dollar back coin, just as quickly. Yeah. Some stable swap method or something. So there's a synergy there, but definitely a lot more exciting are the algo coins. I also, it turns out we're kind of Gensler. I'm not going to say we're Gensler, but like he was talking about how like, oh, you need to separate everything out, have everything separated out. That was always something I was very big on, not necessarily for his reasons, which I don't think are, the reasons to do it. But, we've always had, I think just for governance and making sure that we have expertise and growing refined process for each thing we do. The lending system is a different platform altogether, governed completely separate from TezX, which is governed completely separate from Stable Tez and all USD Tez, ETH Tez, all those stable coins. So yeah, and there is a strong benefit to that for management and security. but also it's just overall a better experience for users because they get it's not just part of what you do. It's not a department within this platform. It is a platform in and of itself.
Yeah, I think we could dive into governance of decentralized products, right? Or just governance in general is a huge topic we could kind of sit on alone. But I like that you kind of separated it because then the users of each thing could govern it. But I want to go back to the end user, or not the end user, the main most important user in terms of, at least when we're talking about, if we're mostly focusing on sort of payments and freedom today, at least in my mind, that's what I wanted to go to. And Brian, I want to know, all this crypto stuff, right? Like, I think you're literally one of the organizers of the Sacramento Bitcoin meetup. So I know you believe in that. And I know, Kevin has been a part of our community, and we know he believes in the decentralized nature of all the back end stuff. And I think we all are doing this for those purposes, right? The sort of freedom, borderless world purposes. And that I don't doubt, but I want to know, the average consumer, especially in the developing world, doesn't really give a crap about that part of it they do give a crap about that part of it when there's those reasons I mentioned way earlier, right? The freedom reasons, when bank accounts are being frozen, when bombs are being dropped, 1000%, they want unconfiscatable money. But when it comes to, I need to buy a sandwich, right? They're not so worried about that. And I know that that's kind of where some of what you're doing, Brian, is. And so what's your biggest challenge in reaching those consumers? What's your biggest challenge? Is it regulatory? Is it education? How are you doing it?
So I would say absolutely it's regulatory. And there's two different facets of the regulation that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the regulations in Northern Africa. And then we also have to deal with the bank regulators here in the United States. Now, the thing is, we're not breaking any laws, right? But what we are doing is we're pushing to the limit terms of service, right? And Alon, you know that most startups, when they start, kind of the first thing they do is, how can we break Craigslist terms of service and post stuff on it or scrape information on it? Or like, the first thing you do is like, how can I push these terms of service? So we're dealing with the terms of service from the bank, and we're dealing with the regulators in the third world. And in the third world, everything is like in America, it's like, is jaywalking legal? Is it illegal? Is banking for a marijuana dispensary, is that legal? Is it illegal? It's kind of a gray area. But in America, most things like, I want to start, a furniture company. I want to import light bulbs or whatever. You have a clear set of rules. But in the third world, it's kind of like, who do you know? You know what I mean? It might be illegal for you, not illegal for each, and like prejudices. And I don't think it's so much prejudices as it is just like who you know, who your cousin is, who you have connection to, who you're able to bribe, all that sort of stuff goes on in the third world. And that's what I think kind of makes America much better in that way, economically, and just like, in multiple ways. It's a lot better to do business in America than it is overseas. So I want to answer your question. Like, it's definitely regulatory, but the thing is it's a two-sided thing. You have to deal with the regulations in the third world, and I have to deal with banking regulations in the United States, and I have to deal with, the laws in the United States. So to answer your question, it's definitely regulatory.
Is it because a lot of people are sending money to family members from here to Africa? And then
yes,
so you have to just jump through those hoops. I would assume that the banks in Africa and the regulators are almost one and the same, right? Kind of like here, but maybe on a more extreme basis. right?
100%. 100%.
Terms,
The banks and the government are kind of almost the same thing in other countries, whereas in the United States, the banks are just very regulated by the government. And
we shouldn't go down this rabbit hole, but I want to go down the rabbit hole.
I'm sorry, because I could go way deep down it if you want.
We are orders of magnitude more free. I should, we should press it, but nowhere near perfect.
100%.
Well,
100%.
But Kevin, I think you were about to say something, but you were maybe muted. Jump in.
Well, so Alon, we don't actually deal with the banks in Northern Africa. We completely go around them. And the reason for that is, well, I don't know if you want to go down the rabbit hole of the black market rate of United States currency versus the bank rate of United States currency. But if you are, it kind of will blow your mind if you're an American. But everyone that's an immigrant is just like, oh yeah, that's obviously.
I will say, I remember as a child going to visit family in Israel. And I remember you being at the airport, and back when we were kids, there wasn't using the credit card and stuff like that. There was very little of that. And it was like my mom would have cash and she'd need to exchange it for the Israeli currency. And everyone would be like, don't do it at the airport. Never do it at the airport. Don't do it at the airport. And then there's places in towns internationally, something we don't even see here, right? Like there isn't like a change store here. In other countries, you see change stores, like where you take your currency and they swap it for euros or shekel or whatever country you're in. And in Israel, they would have that too. But then I remember my grandfather going, no, give me the cash. You take the cash and he'd go to a guy he knew in town that was not in one of those regulated storefronts that would exchange the money and give him a better rate. And I always, that you just triggered that. I don't think I thought about that because, my grandfather has passed away 10 years ago or more. And I haven't even thought of that because I was a little kid when that happened. Because once we got older, you started using credit cards and things and no longer was an issue.
So, yes. So what I would have told little Alon at the airport, what I would have said to him is, I'm just like, okay, here's how it works. In the United States of America, if you have euros, you could just give them to a bank and they'll just dollar back. And it's not that big of a deal because in America, pretty much everyone uses dollars. But in many, many other countries, Israel and a bunch of third world developing countries, the dollar is a big deal and folks want the dollar. Now, regular people need dollars, but you want to know who really likes dollars? It's the governments of those countries. And so the United States, the governments and the banks, we have all the United States dollars we need. But in these third world countries, the dollar is rare because that's what is, that's not what these, funny money government printing governments control. They just interested in the dollar because despite all the problems with our central bank and our Federal Reserve and all that stuff, their country is worse. So they want access to these dollars. So the banks and government sets an artificial rate to exchange the Israeli money or the African dinars or the pesos or all these different currencies. The bank artificially sets these rates that are 40% different. So if you go in the airport, you're taking a 40% haircut, right? So that's why
it's that big of a difference. Is 40%?
Oh, it's huge. It's between 30 and 40%. Typically, and it's
the fees on the exchange are 30 to 40. Like you're not saying the actual. It's not like I go to switch for a euro and it's $2 at the airport and it's $1.20 on the streets.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Alon.
Oh, really? That you're not talking about the fees on top of it?
Yes,
that's insane. In those African countries in the third world.
Well, and apparently when you were a little kid, that's exactly what it was. So it's not just like, oh, they charge a little bit of fees. It's just like the government artificially sets these rates that's called the bank rate. But then if you go to the black market, you get the black market rate. So there's multiple countries that are dealing with this. And it's just a way for the government to extract United States dollars from their citizens. because the government and the bank, you have to remember, are like this.
It's wild. So, you know, if people were using apps and swapping for USD Tez, we'd be very happy.
Yeah, I'm trying to get USD Tez on a Jar wallet. They just added a URL, the Luke stablecoin. So I want to see if they can get that going. But yeah, we are expanding our presence for it with marketplaces and all that. You could use Word. But yeah, so I do want to add though on the prejudices front, I'd say the who you know thing, that is a prejudice. It's just sort of an extreme, obvious prejudice of a form. But really, and ultimately, the people who are the ones that are known, the ones who are in that privileged position where they can make those types of decisions, they tend to be of the in crowd. And so whatever form of prejudices they have against, you know, people not trusting people or a ruling party or ethnicity or religion, that tends to be how it unfolds. You know, my own family, you know, they had to leave Iran a month after the revolution. They came at different points. My parents came a month after the revolution. But yeah, relatives who left, we all like lost everything. Basically, everything had to be left behind. The land was taken. Not even very much land, just like a, you know, humble people's land.
But it's everything you have.
Yeah, it's everything you have. My grandfather, who was retired at that point, you know, a law was passed that said effectively just targeting his minority religion. He had to come out of retirement to pay back his pension. And so he had to work for another like over a decade just to do that. So yeah, it was pretty terrible. But I think that's even a broader, and yeah, it can go, you know, if you are of the privileged class in, and I would say, you know, it's not saying very much what a privileged class in Iran is, but if you are, that you could get some sway with different mullahs and this and that, it's certainly not going to be people of a minority religion or anyone on the outskirts of that. But the same, and that tends to be secular. So it's an institutional prejudice that keeps reinforcing itself. And we see the same thing reflected, especially in the US. I mean, it's not like you could say like, oh, well, everyone's judged for a loan on the same standards. It's all about your credit score and your idea of what you're trying to do and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but there are certain people who aren't going to be like the loan officer is going to be like, you know what, I have a feeling about you. You're going to do great. No, there are certain people where it's like very by the book, and suddenly the format that everyone has to follow is just of hyper importance to this person. So it can very easily be backed by what the regulations are. It's just that some people get more, all things considered, leniency than others. Not to say it's even the conscious fault of the lenders. It's just a lot of it is media. You think of the psych test of Brown versus Board of Education with the Dahl test. It just, you know, they do that like every few decades. It's still the same results. You know, people are going to be making judgments on that front, and not just racial, but also, I mean, gender. Like, how much harder is it for an independent female founder to get the kind of credit position that a male founder would get? It's a different world, you know. We're attuned.
I would say that I would say there are those issues, but I would say in third world developing countries, it is orders of magnitude worse. Sure. And it's all about who you know. Laws are written. These laws are for most people, but then if you know a guy, you know, you kind of get boosted up, and that's and that's the difference between the bank rate and the government rates. There, it's just like who gets the government rate and who gets the black market rate. It's just So I agree with Kevin. There are a lot of problems in the United States, but in the third world, it is just so much worse. So much worse.
So, but the same, I think, solutions at its root level are the cure. If we can reconstruct our system of credit and of lending, it doesn't start on the app level. It starts on contracts. Otherwise, what are the apps building on top of? It's just digital transfer and not blockchain. So it needs to start with on the contract level. And then it's like, well, who administers these contracts? How are decisions made on fees? What gets listed, or if you're going to tinker with reserve rates or liquidation rates and all of that. and making sure there's fair representation there. So governance then becomes something of central importance, and who governs the contract is something to go after. So that's why we need to, and that's why that's in itself a core competency to specialize in. And then, moving up, but when it comes down to how the money actually comes in, what money can come in, what money can come out, how much a credit position people do have, it's very easy, I think. And I noticed this with a lot of DAOs a couple of years ago. It's funny you mentioned like Yemen, because I remember that era and looking into those DeFi and it was just the decisions that were being made, it was like they really weren't getting like what the global community needed. They're like, well, this gets 96% of all votes and all coin agree to this, or they're able to do this thing. So, the 4% that can't, it's like, well, maybe there's a reason why they can't. And I've noticed instances where they couldn't. It's like, well, people could have migrated this contract to that contract. They had enough time. They had 48 hours. It's like, well, some places they lose internet access for a few days, or they lose electricity for a few days,
Remember when we had a member of Celsius on here? I kind of tried to look back on it because I saw Mashinsky so many times at different conferences and stuff. And then I wasn't sure if it was on here or if it was a different member. I think it was a different member of Celsius was on here right after the big flash crash, where everyone, that first big one, Black Thursday or something, I don't remember what it was. It was everyone got liquidated on Curve and a bunch of other places because there was a flash crash that essentially was partly a crash, partly maybe a bug on Binance's front. Like nobody really knew exactly, but wherever the oracle that was getting the price of ETH in that moment or whatever, it dumped. And when it dumped, all these people got liquidated. And the argument from the centralized lenders like Celsius and others were, nobody got liquidated on Celsius or anywhere else, because by the time we even would have notified anyone, the price went back up. And so, but even then we were contacting our users saying, you're going to have 48 hours, 24 hours to, top up, or else we're going to have to take whatever. So their inefficiencies essentially were according to them, the saving grace and the reason why you should use a centralized versus decentralized lender. And now we have products like what Corey recently came on. And I know some of the things that you'll be building with Tesfin, but like Dolomite being one of the first decentralized exchanges where you can have where you can do options and do sort of margin trading and things like that. Essentially, in a position, in a borrow position, you could also short your own position for a fraction of the cost and have an option, give yourself an option on your own short position on your own lending to give yourself like 48 hours or a week after you get liquidated to basically buy yourself out of it or choose to get liquidated. And you could do all these weird, complex things that, again, I suspect the front end interface for 90% of people won't be, okay, I'm going to borrow. And then at the same time I borrow, I'm going to short my own position in this thing and get an option, it's just going to be check a box for 48-hour liquidation protection or something. And the user will use it. But I think that's kind of like it's just an evolution of our space, right? Like so many people got liquidated. So many people will continue to get liquidated when they play that way. But the interface is not there yet, right? And the thing that's nutty to me is like 99% of these products you use don't have a way of contacting you. There's literally absolutely no way for them to contact you. It's like I can borrow $1 million on Aave. Aave will never contact me. Aave can't contact me. They don't know who the hell I am. All they know is a wallet address. And guess what? Wallets don't have notification systems.
Is that good or bad?
Protocol to notify you. It doesn't even exist right now. I mean, there are now starting to be some.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
But the thing is, that's why the engine has to exist, and then the front end will be built on top of it. The user experience will be built on top of it. And I think that I get notifications on all sorts of wallets because I have Zerion and stuff like that. But I only get a notification after something happens. I'm not getting a notification saying, hey, your borrow position is getting dangerously low. You better look at that. I would get a notification saying you were just liquidated. Not that I have any borrow positions other than test ones on Tesfin or anything, but
that's something that I think the app level should have, like the stuff that would plug in to the Tesfins of the world. Not that we couldn't add it, but it's also like when you're at that contract level, when you're on the protocol level, that's when people are like, no, I want this stripped down. This is utility. In fact, I might even just use the API and put it into something else or aggregate it. Sure. But they're not trying to sign up for your mailing list. Like it can come down to that, or they're just like, well, look, my notification is the block record. I am watching that like white on rice. So whatever you give me otherwise would not only be redundant, but it won't have the complete information I need. And the most useful thing of it would be view on Block Explorer. So I think like that's
it is an interesting thing though, because Kevin, you mentioned like previous iterations of products where they're like, well, you had 48 hours to remove it from one contract, go to the other. Those people didn't even have a mailing list, right? They might have had maybe a Medium that if you subscribe to it, you would know, and they have a Twitter account. And it's like, and it's why I'm like, I'm get so frustrated when the only method of communicating with a project or with a protocol is like join our Discord, because if you're in the Discord and you subscribe to that, you'll get notifications. Like the best medium of communication is still email. Like the highest open rate, the highest engagement rate is still email. Like, but places will be like, people will be like, well, we posted on Twitter and we warned everyone, there was a problem with the contract. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. And I think it is also important, not just like that kind of thing that was on a DAO for like a smart, like a yield farming DeFi thing. But it's like, and I think that the producers of it and the ones who benefited could have said like, well, hey, let's, tough shit, like that you couldn't get, like that your electricity went out for a few days. But I mean, that's the free market. That's just Darwinian and whatever. And it's like, okay, but also kind of the point of this was to remove these types of borders of all kinds, not just literal borders.
But we are talking about the most degen ridiculous things. Like, what is a yield farming product? Like, it's just like,
but it happens for everything.
If there's more to the product other than I lock one token, you give me another, and we all we play this gambling game against each other, and some of us will win and most of us will lose. It is
important, I think, for security and for the benefit, of the ecosystem, whatever ecosystem that is, whatever contract level, anything, that diversity is a factor, that you are bringing in people from all over the world who can just, and even if those that think, no, we got it covered here in North America and Western Europe and we're a little Far East too, why not? It's like, well, yeah, but imagine you have a blind spot, because you will. And if you really are a global, not centralized, truly decentralized, then there should be no issue with trying to reconcile with that which would encompass a decentralized world. So that's something that I felt was missing. And it's part of, it goes back to the sort of the institutional prejudice side, because it's not known. It's just so unconscious, the bias of it, because to not even think, like, it's such a good example of like, oh, people might have electricity that goes out for a week. Huh. It would not occur to us. We're thinking about factors that would cover everybody through a smaller, more narrow spectrum. And it's not until you have participation from all corners of the earth that you're going to understand and have shed light on the challenges, the true frictions, which are preventing a DAO from actually taking form, a true DAO from actually taking form. And if we don't, we'll just go through the same cycle of failure again and again until we found a way to truly harness people's intelligence.
Yeah, I think we have to move through these experiments and things like that to get more people participating. But I think, going back to, I have a thought for Brian and Africa too, but getting back to, that region specifically, for example, most of the world, compared to the United States, and most of the developing world kind of leapfrogged the United States in cell phone usage, for example, and even separately from just using a cell phone, but like using SMS and micropayments and things like that. Because in US, we had good infrastructure, and we had monopolies who were in charge of those infrastructure, kind of tied to the government, and made sure we had properly good use, usage of phones and that whole system. And so, we didn't need a cell phone, where in other countries they didn't have wires already running through the streets and everything else connecting every single house. So setting up a cell tower and give everyone cheap cell phones is actually easier than doing that. Because the technology existed at that point. And all of a sudden people were texting each other because minutes on the phone were expensive. And I remember, again, visiting family and seeing people who were younger than me with a cell phone before my parents had a cell phone, and them texting each other. And like, what does that even mean? We still have beepers here and stuff. And I think that can happen with financial products, right? So, Brian is bringing sort of the Western rails of these credit cards and stuff to the consumer. And, Kevin, you and this whole kind of generation of DeFi products and people are bringing the rails that can build some of these things. And I think, talk about Ijara, for example, being one of the wallets. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a leapfrogging, and at a certain point, the cat's kind of going to be out of the bag, right? All of a sudden, we'll be in a world where everyone is texting and everyone has mobile payments, on the next level. And I think that's exciting to me, because, I think that's when the dictators really lose their power. Then they're trying to turn off the internet for the whole country and things like that, and that's going to be less and less feasible as more products exist that connect people to the internet, and more networks exist. And it's still doable for now, but I think it'll be interesting. So getting back to everything, Brian, you said you're mostly in North Africa right now. Do you plan on expanding to other locations? Is that your main focus? Do you plan on moving from those sort of Visa credit card rails to crypto at a certain point? I know.
So basically what we're trying to do is kind of perfect everything in one North African country. And after we do that, we will be able to expand to every other country that is of similar banking and governmental that's similar to it. So essentially what we want to do is we want someone to be able to, hey, I have cash. I want to convert this to a Visa or MasterCard or American or Union Pay or JCB, which is the Visa of Japan. Oh, I want to be able to have this be a stable coin. Oh, I want this to be able to be Bitcoin. Oh, I want to send this to United States and have it be cash over there. I want to send it to Canada and have it be cash over there. Our kind of whole thing is we want money to flow like water. And if you have money, you should be able to use it in any way that you like. You should be able to buy yams on your yam farm. You should be able to get it Tezos. You should be able to turn into Bitcoin. It should be cash. It should be a Visa card. It can be anything. And it shouldn't be all completely controlled by your bank or your government. It should be controlled by you as an individual. And that's what sometimes banks and governments have problems with. And our kind of thing is Uber and Lyft and Airbnb. When those companies first started, they were pushing up against regulation and they were illegal. But it's just like now, it's just like, oh, yeah, obviously we want to be able to hail a taxi without the, Los Angeles Taxi Commission getting money. Because that's
I think
ridiculous.
it goes. I kind of went down the rabbit hole. I think it was last week or the week before when I was talking about like unions, what they originally set out to do versus what they do today. And some are like essential to actual real freedom. And most nowadays are just big bloated bureaucracies that don't really help the people they were set out to help. And there's a big need for sort of a new idea and a new way forward. And looking at those examples you just gave, I'm not sure if they were essentially illegal. They were pushing against some regulation, but they were more unseating powerful unions, and that was their biggest problem. But what's really interesting about the category, and about how things change. And again, this goes to this idea of leapfrogging the current system, leapfrogging what currently exists. If you look at the whole taxi market pre-Uber existing, and you look at the original decks from Uber, and they said, we're trying to get 10% of the taxi market. If we do that, we'll be a $2 billion company or whatever it was. They are worth more. They do and do more revenue-wise and things like that than the whole taxi market already does. The whole market. They created a category that was bigger than the whole market, right? And I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of this stuff. Right?
I think a lot about how Uber evolved and how it started as they tried to penetrate the black car service, but I mean, really, that whole sector, it was like, well, let's get these taxis, these yellow cabs, hooked up so that we can dispatch them from this location. Oh no, not again. Doesn't like me on this end. Oh yeah. So I did that for impact. That was purposeful. It's out of sight what I'm saying. Crap joke. But yeah, so then they're like, well, the ultimate goal is just to get to Uber X. And now Uber X is just everything. But I see a lot of that in tokenization of assets and in the way in which people are viewing the movement into DeFi. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call it protectionism. I would just say I think the way of looking at things is still very TradFi centric. And it's still very much about tokenizing, or a lot of people, I think, when they come to the crypto space and start to understand how finance and crypto works, they start thinking about like, oh, let's tokenize these off-chain assets. It's like, well, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, you can't do the stuff you want to do if you start doing that. Plus, no one wants to take that risk because that can instantly be, like they can be regulated, but then it decides, no, there was other regulation you didn't know. So that's why DeFi 1 and STOs did not in that last cycle, which was the expectation, I think, of a lot of people that it would be the other way around. So like we are same thing with KYC for a lot of the stuff that it's like, sure, a lot of things should have KYC, but a lot of things it's just like, okay, this just doesn't make any sense. You don't have that in the real world in any sense whatsoever. Like it doesn't, it's just kind of like, I think a manic display of paranoia about the crypto world to just kind of throw every single parameter of the TradFi world to try to and put that in a digital manner. It doesn't make any sense. Just like
I think we have this bias is not the right word. We have a foundation that each and every one of us internally grew up with and lived with and is going to guide us for a really long time. And we're the weirdos and the misfits and the people who kind of can detach ourselves from that foundation in some ways in some periods of time. But even then, we still are emotionally attached to this idea. For example, just throwing out there, the idea that, how much US dollars is this Bitcoin worth? How much US dollars is this Ethereum or this Tesla's worth? And we look at that and even, okay, we started the conversation backstage and we were talking about being in crypto. And we joked about prices and what's going on in the new year. And I went like, it matters to me psychologically, and I think it does to everyone because of exactly this foundation that I'm talking about, but I'm not selling. And so it shouldn't matter as much as it does. And by the way, I believe in this so much, and I think you guys do too, but I'll speak for myself, that if I could do something today and I can know that tomorrow, if I have one Bitcoin, tomorrow or 1 year from now, I can have 1.1 Bitcoin, then I won. Like, that's how I feel. If we start looking at it US dollar wise and go, oh shit, man, I should have sold at the top. I should be buying more now. I should be doing this. Then you're not actually properly in it, right? Like if we can detach ourselves at a certain point, because if we can detach ourselves, maybe this is this whole like going down. I'm not normally this dude, but maybe we need to get like fully like emancipation of our minds, right? Like the whole idea of like of like we need to go down this Buddhist kind of rabbit hole of detaching ourselves from our bodies, right? But this idea in general of this traditional world, going back to what Kevin says, we have a TradFi lens at which we look at everything. We look at a DeFi product and go, oh, that's like this other thing. And what's interesting is when we look at it in general, and I'm going down a weird rabbit hole, so I'm going to stop in a second. But when we look at it in general, there's not much different from what DeFi brings to the table than what the original idea of a community bank was, I don't know, 100 years ago or thousands of years ago. Community, a group of farmers getting together, we pool our money, we buy something, we split it up, we do this thing. But banks have gotten so fat, you know, the not that they, you know, both figuratively and literally, but their fees have gotten so egregious. The amount of leverage they can have has gotten so egregious. Their own backing of the government and then the government backing them in these situations of bailouts and things like that. It's made the system so inefficient that we need DeFi so badly. And the worst case scenario is banks will start treating us more fairly because they'll have no choice because they're losing customers. And best case scenario, the whole thing burns to the ground, we start over. But until we detach ourselves from that lens, you know, we're not going to build in this space, you know, its potential, because we're going to be building for a marginally better version of the crappy thing we're used to. Brian,
yeah. So Alon, yeah, I love how you're thinking about it, you know, completely. I like how you're thinking about it, because in America, we just think, oh, this is the dollar, and oh, is Bitcoin going up or down? Is Tesla's going up or down? But in reality, the truth of the matter is the dollar is going down. Like what it went down 10% just because of inflation just last year. And
that's what the government told you.
Well,
probably much worse. If you're the person buying the groceries in your house, you probably think it's much worse than that.
Exactly. But the thing is, in other countries, they're not just looking at their currency. They're looking at the dinar. They're looking at the euro. They're looking at the dollar. They're seeing like, oh, is the euro going up or is the dollar going down? Or like, because they're not seeing it as, oh, crypto is worth X amount of money. They're seeing the multiple different, you know, currencies that we have and how those are all moving down. And yeah, well, I think we all need to look in our community. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin.
It's easy. Again, that's a luxury to say that. Like it is a very privileged position to be like, bro, I own Bitcoin and you know, I don't care if it goes up or down because one is one and whatever, right? Like I know a lot of people. We have a lot of friends who, you know, have had to sell their crypto or their Bitcoin just to live, right? In these situations and in these economies and everything else. So it is we know it's a privileged position to be in, but if we, I think from the services standpoint, from the products we build standpoint, and for our own, you know, mental health purposes, we should try to go like, I bought this to be in this world, and in this world, this is stable. It's actually growing. I'm putting it in places where I'm earning interest on it, right? And that interest, if you calculate US dollars, maybe might not look great, but also we do that in the United States and we're insular. I remember the last time there was the when Bitcoin in the 2018 times went from the 20K down, I remember there was some very basic math and graphs that were showing, here's Bitcoin tagged to the US dollar, here's Bitcoin today. And if you had pegged it to I think at the time it was Argentina or something like that, Bitcoin actually appreciated in value. Right. And so it was this interesting idea that goes like, we're thinking about it because we're pegging it to the US dollar and that's where we live. If we were in Argentina, their money had gone down in so much value in a short period of time because of their economic situation. that Bitcoin was actually worth more Argentinian dollars after everything dumped to the US dollar than it was before. Now, you know,
or Zimbabwe or Chile or
it's a perspective issue, right? I would, you know, I think in those situations, I don't know if Argentinians are holding a lot of their money, but the people who did lost it all, right? Like they couldn't, but it's happened over and over again in these other places.
Yeah. I remember in the height of the bull run, this last bull run, I'd be talking to a lot of the Bitcoin absolutists, to the effect that, like, I mean, for me, I mean, Bitcoin does not need to be more than a store of value. I'm in that camp. It doesn't need to be a unit of denomination. Certainly not right now. And as long as it can, in fact, it can be stronger and grow stronger that way if we focus on, you know, drop certain charges, right? But what I remember pointing out, saying, like, the idea that of like, oh, it needs to be a store of value, it needs to be our money, it needs to be everything for it to succeed. To me, it's like, well, if you're really confident in Bitcoin, like I feel long-term confident in Bitcoin, so I felt, no, it doesn't. I don't need to see that to feel reassured of it.
You know what?
But what they'd say is like, and I'd say, well, it's not like, we're still going to be using other localized units of denomination. And if you believe it's money, if you feel that way, then why are you saying hold it? Why are you saying hodl it? Do you use it as money? Do you spend it at all? And it's like, and especially at the time, they weren't touching any kind of a lending platform because, you know, they're purist Bitcoin. So
well,
they would always say, like, well, look at what's happening in Nigeria. And it's like, there we go. Or they pick another third world country, and it's like, all right, so you like that they're spending it, the places where they're so desperate that they have to be using this. And that's, again, a class that is benefiting off the backs of those who are less fortunate. Whereas they get to hold it. Oh yeah, you get to hold it if you're in a privileged position. And then look at Nigeria.
That's the whole thing. And we shouldn't go down this rabbit hole, because so many of our friends who have like turned the corner into being like the super hardcore Bitcoin maxis are also extreme hypocrites, because so many of them made so much money in previous DeFi market things. And then they will talk about this decentralization and talk about coins, that they're shit coins, and talk about DAOs like they're stupid, but they all own equity in their own companies, which are the most centralized things in the world, where one CEO makes the decision. That's totally fine. But a DAO that you know has
I remember Michael Saylor said something to the effect of like was that a tweet? He was like, if you don't have to hold a Bitcoin for 5 years plus, you're not a true investor. It's like, idiot.
Okay. You don't have to be an investor.
You're not supposed to ever get rid of it. Like, even when you start spending, you're supposed to like take it like from the Bitcoin itself. The idea that you're thinking of it as an investment is, I think, antithetical to everything the Bitcoin absolutist manifesto
originally set out to do. But here's the thing. I kind of love that Bitcoin is everything to everyone, or not everything to everyone, but certain things to certain people, and can be used in so many ways. Because at the end of the day, I want it to be technology. Like, I use the internet for Twitter, for what I do, right? For whatever, right? And then you use the internet for completely different reasons. And also, what we use it for today is very different than what we used it for 10 years ago. And what we use it for 10 years from now is different than what we're using it today. And I love the idea of like, you know what? If you believe that Bitcoin could have a lending platform built on top of Bitcoin and on that blockchain, whatever, show it to me. Build it, go for it. Because if it adds more value to this, great. It's not going to take away value from it. You know, I think that's the thing that I don't like about the maxi arguments about anything, about Ethereum, Bitcoin, anything. Yeah. If you're saying that Kevin building on Tezos takes away value from your Bitcoin, then you don't believe in Bitcoin. It's like when, remember, Kevin, we've had these conversations about bridges in the past, and we're like, if you don't think there should be a bridge from Ethereum to Tezos, or from Bitcoin to Tezos, or from any blockchain to any blockchain, then you don't believe in that blockchain, right? Like, if you're a Tezos,
you create a two-way street, right, and all you're thinking about is people leaving, then you're not really confident in your thing, are you?
Then you're in the TradFi world. You're building a bank, and you're building moats, and you're trying to keep people from leaving, and so you're creating oppressive values within your own product because you're scared that you'll lose a customer. If you're the best product in the world, you're not scared you're going to lose a customer. Everyone else is scared they're going to lose their customers to you. And Bitcoin is so valuable, not just not just as a store of value, but for again, for people in other countries to transact with, for what it can do. And you know what, like, I haven't yet seen Bitcoin being used as well as other products in terms of payments on an everyday basis. And I still want to just hold my Bitcoin. I don't want to buy my coffee with it. I'll use my dollars for that. But at the end of the day, if that's what you want to do and you can build and you can add value to the network, like, I love that. I want people to do that. But to also say, like, hey, you know that thing that's way better than the traditional world, but it's not Bitcoin, I'm going to be angry about it. Like, it's a little silly to me. And it's also like, again, somebody else's success doesn't take away from yours at all. And it's a weird ass way to look at things. And I guess, I could get frustrated, right? If somebody goes like, I don't know, isn't Solana the same as Bitcoin? Like, because I saw it on Fox, or whatever. Like, then you can get into those nuance arguments. And I get why Bitcoiners could be mad about that. But like, it's still, at the end of the day, building in this decentralized world is making everyone live in a better world, in my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
But
I remember in a USC film school, like when we'd have people would show each other their films, it was the best filmmakers like in the classes that would get like feel jealousy, feel like someone was going to take something away from them. Like they couldn't be happy for others. They'd make the little snarky comment.
That is a part of,
dude. And everyone else was just cool about it. So like, I think about that a lot because it's like, wow, they're so good at it. But they're so deeply invested that maybe the insecurity level just kind of rises with that. And they can't feel as like if you're a little bit into Bitcoin, you don't care. You love learning about all these different coins. If you go deep into it, suddenly it's like, there's a new thing? No, fuck that. That's a scam. Well, you didn't even hear it yet. No, fuck that. That's a scam, I said. Like, it's not, but like that's just human psychology. It's the way it works. So,
I don't know, because I feel like the people who are the most vocal also are, maybe because I've been in the space long enough to have known what they did before they did Bitcoin, and I know they're, I know
not everybody
how conflicted, not everybody, but I know how many people are conflicted. So when I see them have this conflict of interest where it's like, it's so obvious, right? It's silly. And again, at the end of the day, if I don't know, it's just this funny thing. We don't need to go there, and we're 15 minutes over, so we should wrap it up. But I know we need to talk about these things a lot more. I think I'm very, very proud and excited at what you've already built, Brian, and having I think you said 250K a month transacting through this is huge, and every step towards creating these opportunities for everyone in the world that we take for granted is huge. So I commend you on it, and give everyone. Is there a plug or something you can give everyone before we go?
Well, I guess the plug. I don't want to get too specifics about me or my company, because there's an off chance that some banking regulator is going to see, and we can get shut off of one of our other.
Well, I'll just thank you, and people follow Brian for more.
By the way, I don't know this guy. Just kind of shared this space. Along connected it.
If you want to get in touch with me, talk to David Rankin or Alon, and they could put you in touch with me.
We'll connect you.
Or if you know anybody that is moving money into or out of Northern Africa, just definitely hit me up.
And Kevin, give everyone the Stable Tech plugs and where to follow you. You did a good job with your Twitter handle down below.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter @KMarabi. That's my primary place of communication, and I'll funnel all the accounts there, and you can see in the bio how to get to all the other little Stable Tech things. But yeah, USD Tez, Tezos Finance, that's Tez Fin. as well as TezX at Tezos Exchange. So you can check all that out, as well as the at StableTez platform that'll be coming out hopefully in a few weeks, which will be very exciting.
Kevin, we need to do another Tezos roundup. I'm going to bug you about that because we had a few questions that we didn't even get to. Somebody asked about liquidity baking, some things like that. What I will say, though, for everyone watching, thanks again to Lunar Crush for the live stream, and for anyone watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or anywhere else. If you want to, hop to blockchainbooze.io right now. It'll redirect you to the DGH site, and you can sign up and hang with the crowd and turn on your camera if you'd like to. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining. Happy New Year again, and excited to see what you guys have built. Thanks, guys.